Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jonathan LaCour. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Mission. I'm joined by some great smart folks from Mission as well. Let them introduce themselves real quick.
I'm Tim Banks, consultant here at Mission.
And Jaret, Vice President of Consulting Services.
Awesome. So we're here today to kind of have a little bit of just a chat, casual conversation, reacting to the exciting Andy Jassy keynote this morning from Reinvent. And there are so many topics that we could cover. This is not going to be a summary of everything that happened. We're not going to, tell you about a list of all the announcements that were made because there were a lot. Really, we just wanted to do something a little bit more fun and just chat with each other and talk about what kind of stood out to us. And for a little bit more context, the reason this is interesting to us is, well, we work for Mission. Mission is a consulting and managed services partner of Amazon's. We're actually a premier consulting partner and managed service provider. So we are 100% focused on AWS, and therefore we were watching pretty closely this morning. And I'd like to actually start with just the theme of the whole thing. Andy Jassy really leaned into this whole concept of what does it mean to reinvent, right? And I thought that was really, really interesting.
Oh yeah, he talked. I thought it was interesting as we talk about reinvention, and the first company that came up was J.P. Morgan Chase. And when you think of an old financial institution that's been around since folding money has been around almost, that is using modern technology to reinvent how they do their own business, how they service their customers, and how they can what does the financial institution, what does their company look like 2 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. And they're really looking at changing who they fundamentally are to meet those needs.
The other thing I would add there too is just the emphasis on being proactive about reinventing. You made some very specific points about if you wait until you need to reinvent, you're way behind already. And you're right.
You've already lost.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I think too, you're talking about, how they did a reinvention ideas. They mentioned a company called Boom, who's doing transatlantic, not transatlantic, but just supersonic flight. Supersonic flight has been around since, I guess, the 60s, back in the days of the Concorde, and it had gone away, because it was no longer sustainable for doing. But Boom is taking that idea and they're bringing it into the 21st century and saying, all right, well, we can find a way to do this that's cheaper, that's more sustainable. And so we're going to take this old idea and we're going to make it, we're going to modernize it. We're going to bring it to the masses.
Yeah, but do I still get like a little flute of champagne in the Concorde kind of way? I want it to feel like it's something fancy.
No, I think they just give you those little mini Diet Coke cans now.
Yeah, that's a shame.
If you can get me anywhere in 4 hours, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think AWS does like to talk a lot about disruption and reinvention, but frankly, they kind of live up to it. And I always find that really interesting to see how they're willing to do some things that you would think would cannibalize themselves. And they're just okay with it because it's the future. It's like always looking forward, always looking ahead. I like to think that Mission does the same thing. We're always thinking about making changes and adjusting and such. And it's really good to have a partner like AWS that kind of pushes you to do that. Good reminder. And I think, go ahead, Tim.
So I think it was interesting too. We talk about, reinvention kind of disrupting. And one of the things I thought was AWS was definitely going after some of the larger competitors and disrupting them. They talked about, they had taken several shots at Microsoft with some of their tech, with some of their rollouts. One in particular was Babelfish.
Yep.
Right. So they specifically have this now open source thing to help people get off of SQL Server and onto Postgres. I'm like, that's really a very pinpoint shot. That's a sniper shot right there.
It is not a small undertaking to go re-platform your databases. I mean, you can remove that friction and make that seamless. I mean, come on, reduce the licensing costs and everything.
And we talk to customers all the time where they're like, I'm trying to cost optimize and I have this huge cost and it's licensing. And it's like, it's like when you get a call from the roofer and you need to get a new roof. It's like, nobody wants to get a new roof. Because it's like, what value am I getting out of this? The same thing as licensing, I feel like I'm not getting the value. And when there's, great open source relational databases that could work pretty well for my use case potentially.
Yeah.
It's just a different way.
What I think is interesting is that they didn't say there's no lift, right? But
Right.
they've definitely decreased that lift, whether you're on, on-prem or whether you're using RDS, MS SQL, they're trying to get you out of paying licenses and them out of paying licenses to Microsoft to access your data. What I think is interesting about that is like, even though there's going to be a lift, it's a lot easier if you don't have the cycles to do that. That's something that you can farm out. And something Mission has helped with many times of getting people to do database transformation onto RDS or onto Aurora. We've got plenty of expertise in that and have done it all day long. So I'm excited to see that because it's going to help people save money. It's going to help people do things a better way. It's going to help people be more elastic and be scalable without having a lot of heartache, and also without having to be subject to, the whims of licensing. So
that's probably a good segue into the Aurora announcements in general. What do you guys think about version 2?
Aurora Serverless version 2 is very exciting because Aurora Serverless version 1 was not very exciting.
No, it was. I think Aurora Serverless version 1 was kind of like an experiment that just went to production, and it had so much potential,
huge potential,
but it just never delivered on it. So I'm excited to see that with Aurora Serverless V2. When we hear the claims that would scale up from hundreds to hundreds of thousands of transactions in fractions of a second, that's a big claim. That's a big claim. And I'm if it works, I'm here for it. But I definitely want to see that, because if you think about it, how long does it take to spin up an RDS instance?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Minutes, right? And sometimes minutes is way too long. But you're talking, I can scale up transactions across AZs, and I don't have to worry about replication because it's just compute. And you're talking even faster than some of the Lambda cold start problems you had in the past. That's really compelling. That's really compelling.
I'm a old school database nerd. I love relational databases, and I've lived through the whole document databases and all this key value stores and stuff, and it's all great. I love those too, but there is a special wonderful thing about relational databases and SQL, which has been around for ages, and it's it is truly fantastic modeling tool. It's incredible, powerful thing. And it's always been sort of well, we have RDS and it's basically just like the old thing, but just wrapped in a couple EC2 instances with auto scaling and managed service around it. And it didn't really feel it was this generational leap. And to me, that's what Amazon Aurora Serverless V2 could potentially be, hopefully. Right?
It's always been the long pole in the tent, rapid auto scaling on your database back in. And it seems like this is the answer, right? We'll see.
Yeah, and I guess it is not lost on me that they also had a lot of storage related announcements, which we talked about as well.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of this scaling problem really comes down to in many respects, is it's a storage scaling issue. So I'm guessing these teams are probably talking to each other.
Yeah, I'm actually. It's interesting though, because Amazon announced the GP3 storage for block storage, which decouples IOPS from storage space, right? Yeah. And that was always a problem. It's hey, I need more storage, I need more IOPS. So well, now I need 10 times more IOPS. Well, now you have 10 times more storage. I didn't need 10 times more storage. I just need the IOPS. And now you got that both. But it goes back to what we were talking about with Aurora. Now we can have almost as much storage as we need without having to add compute to it that you weren't going to use. So literally it's the opposite, but still so necessary, because now people can do some optimization. How many customers we have that have so many volumes just sitting out there almost empty, but because they need the IOPS, they have to have them. And there's a big potential there to optimize, to get rid of all those, to get a little more efficient. And that may be a big lift, and that's fine. It's something that's going to pay dividends in the long run. But if you're out there and you're looking at your volumes in your console and you're seeing them all sitting there half unused, but you need the IOPS, and you're figuring out, well, how can I get these consolidated down into GP3 instances? Let us know. We can help you with that.
Man. Our cloud analysts,
a lot of cost optimization exercises off the back end of this GP3 announcement. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. All of our cloud analysts who do cost optimization services are going to be spending the next 2 weeks looking at everybody's volumes and saying,
right,
how can we save you? It's another lever though, right? That's the whole thing that AWS tends to do, is they tend to take a solution, and they figure out how many tunables they can give you as the customer to give you the power to do literally whatever you want with it, which is awesome. But the downside of that is it's a lot of complexity, which, selfishly, that's why we're in business, partially at least, because, we can help with that. But it is really interesting. It's
a lot more options, a lot more to solution with. I mean, it's a big toolkit. You need people that know how to navigate it quickly.
Exactly.
I would say, speaking of options, the thing that I'm excited about is some of the silicon that's coming out with EC2.
Yeah.
Like, AWS has been using the Graviton, and that's been awesome. And now they're talking about using the Trainium silicon.
Yep.
Right. This is 2 different now types of custom silicon that AWS has on themselves.
It's 3 now.
Three.
Because
That's 3 now.
One they did Differentia.
The inference engine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've got that. They're offering Mac OS instances now, and I don't think it's any accident that they now have ARM-based instances, and now they have Mac OS that's now compatible with ARM as well. So I mean, these are some pretty awesome kinds of things we have options for, and we already know it's like a 20% savings off the top for Graviton processors right now. So yeah, utilizing some of the Trainium, that could be really, really lucrative for some folks. So.
Well, it's interesting to me because it's the first kind of round of this was sort of signaling, but now where you see where it could go, and you brought up Mac OS running on AWS, which is super interesting what they did that, but you actually can do a comparison to what Apple's doing in their silicon, right? With their consumer kind of, PCs and their phones and their tablets and everything. And AWS has more workloads running on it than any other cloud provider in the world. They're customer obsessed, right? This is their big cultural kind of value that permeates AWS. Like, if they're able to develop custom silicon that matches to what they're seeing with workloads in AWS, watch out, because everything that they've done up until this point, until Graviton and some of the other things, has been based on commodity, compute from Intel and AMD, right? And this is a totally different ballgame now, right? Custom silicon for all sorts of different workloads. And right now it's for machine learning, and that's the logical place for them to start. But, it's interesting.
No, yeah, it really is interesting. And I think some of the things that you talk about, with AWS really talking about disruption as a whole theme and reinvention as a whole theme, they're literally reinventing how they do silicon, like what their instances look like. And if you talk about the work that they're doing right now, and the work that the companies can do right now to utilize some of the new technologies coming out, we're talking about something that's going to pay dividends for years, whether it's cost optimization, whether it's performance, whether it's some of the AI ML technologies they've been talking about, some of the analytics tools they've been talking about. A lot of the things they're doing now is a spot where AWS is reinventing itself so that customers can reinvent themselves, so they can be in a great position to really take hold and grow on some of these platforms that are coming out with now. And who knows what that's going to look like 2, 3, 5 years from now. I'm super excited to see it.
Well, you're already starting to see some of that. They're baking some of these services and these analytic services into their Connect portfolio, and their manufacturing hardware and all these things. I mean, it's a flywheel of agility and momentum that they're gaining with these platforms that they're able to use to service their other features as well. And it's just mind-boggling to think where this is all heading.
Yeah. And we're at the beginning of this thing too, which is really terrifying in some respects.
Just scratching the surface, really.
All right. I do have a topic that is near and dear to my heart that I want to talk about, because I still consider myself a developer, even though I don't get to write code nearly as much as I'd like to. And I love writing serverless applications, and I like also building out containerized applications. And for the longest time, it's been a pain, because you have one set of tools that you use over here and one set of tools you over here, and 2 different workflows. How do you do CI/CD? And developer experience has never been one of AWS's number one strengths, right? They build out these incredible building blocks and atoms, and then they just kind of leave it to the community to figure out some of the other bits and pieces. But they did announce you can build out Lambda functions from container images now, which is super cool.
Oh, as an DevOps guy and somebody with a operations background, the idea of only having to maintain one tool set or deploying Lambda functions like I would any other Docker container is it's a huge game changer and complicating what you do. And this is just me doing conjecture. What I would love to see is this turn into something where you can deploy Lambda functions in something like Kubernetes. Where I just have I have a pod defined that's nothing but Lambda functions, and I can schedule them or I need them, or do auto scale them as I need them or whatever. That would be pretty awesome. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's
Is
what
it
I
a
would like to see.
prediction?
It's,
We'll see.
You just
On
broke
the
my
wish
brain,
list,
Tim.
huh?
yeah.
It is really interesting though. Like, I'm a big fan of like the serverless framework. I think it's actually really great and really useful, but I'd be interested to hear their take on this, right? Because look, it's possible that it's sort of a second-class citizen. Like that's one of the things that I think remains to be seen. I haven't dug in enough yet. Like, are there limitations if you deploy a Lambda from a container image, or is it just a Lambda, right? I don't know. I'm very intrigued to see what the community sort of says about this, because it's really interesting.
Again, it's just one of those things. There's just more tools in the tool chest. It's a good option to have, but it increases complexity in its own way. In one way, you're reducing complexity by maybe simplifying the number of toolkits that you have, but now it's just more options to choose from. You need partners and folks that have been through it that can help you wade through the gotchas. There's always gotchas, right? I mean, It seems like everything, there's pros and cons. And so still to be determined what we're gonna find from some exploration with some of these tools.
For sure. And good news is I know a guy. So if anybody needs some help, just let me know. I know a guy who can help you with all your AWS needs. All right, gentlemen, that was a really fun conversation. We definitely didn't touch on everything, but we touched on some of the really most interesting and fun things. And looking forward to doing more of these over the next couple of weeks now that AWS has decided that we need to reinvent our lives for 3 weeks instead of just for a couple days.
Hey, I'm in. It'll be fun.
Yeah,
it'll be great. Good times.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks, guys.
All right. Looking forward to more. Thanks.